Okay, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Leading from Home. And Phil, we've both got our summer, well, post-summer photos in the behind us. So it's good to kick off with, even though we're in autumn. So that's the most important thing.
Yeah, nice to see you again, Shaun. Yeah, that's Portmadog in North Wales in the background there. One of my favourite places. Looking forward to seeing it later on this year, lockdown permitting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, let's say, as we talked about my background last week, I went for another bike ride last Saturday and went over this bridge. This is background. So, as I say, even though when people have a hangover in terms of holidays that has passed, having looking at photos or reliving, as I say, even as a backdrop, just helps prolong that holiday feeling rather than trying to have a hard stop saying, okay, back to it and back to the stress. And that's where stress is going to be the topic of today in terms of managing stress, but really focusing on the holistic perspective of managing stress, not just from work, but just during our overall body in terms of, your physical, your sleep, and some of the habits. And to be specific about that, I talked about last time that I'm doing this HINSA high performance program, which basically I'm going to put myself on the spotlight regarding how stress was impacting me pre-COVID earlier this year. And some of the impacts that it's impacted my work, my family, my performance, and then sort of some of the habits I've learned and now put in place through this HINSTA program to help share some knowledge and some tips to help people both educate themselves, but also try some of these habits to help manage stress on a more holistic basis. So that's the episode today, and we're going to go through those. And as I say,
yeah. So
kicking off stress, Phil. How are you seeing in your clients and your perspective, how are you seeing people impacted by stress, not just from COVID, but just generally from business in terms of always on technology and an increased workload?
I had a very interesting session with some young graduates yesterday who were hired during the lockdown. Their entire professional life since they've been with the company has been working from home. And, like most of them, they have very little money. So their apartments are very small, very tight. And I did give one guy just a little bit of tip, which I'll share with you right now, because he was getting really sick and tired of every day he's in his kitchen, which is his only other room apart from his bedroom. And I just said to him, so how many chairs have you got? He said, well, I've got two. I said, well, which one do you use for work? He said, well, it's obvious. It's the one I'm sitting in right now. And I said, when you finish work, which one do you sit in? I still sit in the same chair. I said, don't. I said, you've got a second chair. Make that chair your work chair.
Yeah.
And when you put it under the table, that's work over for the day.
Yeah.
It's a small point, but it will make a difference. That chair is your work chair. That chair is your non-work chair.
Yeah.
Make that separation. And so this problem is far from over. And for young people who are in limited living accommodation, there's just a simple tip, but I wanted to share it with you today, Shaun, because I think it'll make a difference.
Yeah, I think that's the key with all our episodes is us sharing tips as small as they are to help that small difference. And that's where, as opposed to, there isn't a silver bullet, which and if you did feel, I'm sure, the most biggest selling silver bullet that we put out there. But as we say, because things are always moving in terms of 1 minute it's COVID, the next minute is a reorg. We've talked about that change is constant, like the change curve that you've referred to, Phil. And that's where, for us, the habits we're sharing is a way to manage that curve through managing stress, but most importantly, managing your health, your relationships, and your performance. And that's where we're going to dive into it.
So tell us a little bit about this. I mean, you've been talking about HINSA a lot. Just give me the background as to why it attracted you. What was going on in your life at the time?
Yeah, well, and here I'm going to be totally honest and transparent in terms of over the last few years, the stress at my job. I work for a bank, and we've had numerous reorganizations and also transformations. I was massively stressed out, like literally always on emails, meetings back to back, workload well above my head. Wasn't sleeping, totally stressed. So like I literally sometimes my wife was like, put your shoulders down. Like the stress was through my body. That I just totally felt always tense, always, like always like this. And I'll be having headaches probably at least every second day. So, and I think I'll get through it. I always say to myself, okay, I'll have a break and I'll recharge, or I'll find ways of doing it. But of course it doesn't go away. And I was drowning in terms of just, I was moody, snappy at home. My kids were always, cautious of talking to me because I'd be, just snap, snap, snap. And at work, also be in a bad mood and back-to-back meetings, not really focusing. So I was looking for ways to say, and being big in sport, I know that this wasn't good for my health. Having these headaches, always like this for half the time, having super tense necks, and my PT, who I thought was a great addition as a quick fix, said, Shaun, like, what are you going to do about this change? You're always tense when I see you every week, and you're always worn out. So I needed to find something that was basically, I was desperate for a change to manage the stress. And then I came across a webinar actually by Hinsa. The topic was about something like finding purpose and meaning and managing stress. And I thought, like, great, there must be something here that I'm going to take some takeaways. And I watched it, and there's some key messages in that webinar about finding purpose and finding happiness, as well as that sitting back and reflecting about what is important to you rather than always getting caught up in the wheel.
So you took the plunge, and you approached them, and I have to say that for anybody listening, they must be now really asking, so what is this Hinsa? What do they do? So tell us about their approach to dealing with finding purpose and to dealing with the stress that prompted you to get there.
Yeah, well, let me just share. It's very easy to share. Everything is about this wheel, which I'll share with you now on the screen. So it's probably easier to. So yeah, they're about everything is about the circle of better life. That's basically the models regarding this wheel, and this is what sort of really started to draw me in terms of, they say that unless every element in this wheel is in sync, then something is going to be impacting this wheel spinning, which means that something is impacting your performance in a big way. And I looked at this as well. Wow, like I said, like, yeah, here I'm thinking I'm really fit, and like I do a lot of running and cycling, and I eat really well, but everything else, sleep and everything else is like, whoops, yep, this is the stress having its impact on me. So this is what Hints is all about in terms of having an holistic perspective of managing your performance and health over these areas of physical activity, nutrition, sleep and recovery, biomechanics, mental energy, and general health.
Very good. So, I mean, we're talking about something that goes way, way beyond, what you're doing in those 8 to 10 hours a day when you're working.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where, like, ironically enough, when I watched this webinar about core and purpose, I knew that just fixing my workload wasn't going to fix the problem. That I was unhappy with being moody to my family and to my kids, and also I just constantly tired and just it wasn't myself. I knew that something had to change. So having a quick fix of changing jobs wasn't going to do it, as well as that buying something like a new bike isn't going to fix it. Something underneath, a big, like a what do you say, like a fundamental change had to happen.
Very, very good. And it's interesting there that you talk about, if you like, some of the reactions that people have when they're in this kind of environment. They know they're not happy with what they're doing at the moment, and they often feel that a change of role might make the difference, a change of relationship might make a difference, a change of setting might make a difference, but actually the problem is within. And it sounds like this Hinsa program has really helped you introspect and see, so what do I need to do differently, rather than fix the things that are outside? What do I need to do to sort myself out? So what were the key things that you dealt with, and what difference has it made?
Well, it's interesting when you talked about fixing the things on the outside, because I forgot to mention, in the very middle of this circle is a thing called core. And people might think, how is my core strength going to fix things? This isn't about core strength. Core is about core as in who is your core person. And that's where this really got me engaged in terms of my lowest score when I did this. This is a survey actually at the end of my of my program, which I'm almost finishing after 8 months, and I'll show you my pre-one shortly. My core was my lowest in terms of not having a clear direction of my sense of purpose and what I was doing and being happy with it. So, and that's made me really trigger up in terms of before I enrolled in this program, I did this survey, which is free on the website for people who want to do it, just to get a benchmark. You answer all these questions and then it gives you a score. And, when I saw how bad most of these were like almost red, areas to improve or areas to focus on, core was one of them. And that's where, I said, okay, I need to start with me and getting my purpose and as my happiness, and then fix the things on around the outside. And they're all related. They're all interrelated. So for example, talk about Band-Aid approaches. I would come home, and I'm not the only one here, I'm sure a lot of listeners do this. After a stressful day, I thought relaxing was mean sitting on the couch watching Netflix with a couple of glasses of wine to help me relax and get a good night's sleep. And I suppose, Phil, do you think that's from your perspective? Do you think that's a common approach about what people, how they relax and switch off?
As someone who spent their first 8 years as a brewer, you know the answer to that. Yeah,
or having a couple of beers, or I'm gonna go to the pub on the way home because I've deserved it. That was sometimes some of my approaches of I'm just switch. I'm so burnt out. I'm gonna go with my mates and have a couple of beers, and then I come home and think, yeah, this feels good. Well, little did I know through the program, when I went to the element here of sleep and recovery, and you do a survey, actually, and people who may not know this, having alcohol or any stimulant before bed actually prevents you going down what you call deep sleep. That you may sleep easier and you relax quicker, so you enter the sleep zone, but your recovery and your memory and how you recover properly is in the deep sleep, and alcohol prevents you going that direction. So in a way, you're not recovering. So you wake up thinking, I've had 9 hours sleep, but it's like, going swimming, that you're only at the surface. So that internally, my stress is compounding. My brain isn't recovering, my memories, and I'll be forgetting a lot of things, my mood snapping. This was part of the problem. Bad habits that I wasn't aware of doing me harm, that I was actually thinking is doing its good, which hence why I want to share this to most people that just don't think that coming home and having some wine or some beer is the Band-Aid approach that you want to follow. It's really bad for me to sleep, and start to address, the deep core issues underneath of how to fix it.
It's a great point, but incredibly depressing to someone who has enjoyed drinking a beer after work for so many years.
Yeah, that was one of the hardest things for me to stop. As I say, you can have a glass of wine, at dinner time, but it's more that when you think at 9 o'clock, when the exciting part of the movie or the Netflix is coming on, having that glass then, when you're going to go to bed in an hour's time too, that's where you need to pull back in terms of, well, I need to recharge here. I have a busy schedule for work, and also I have a busy schedule for sport. So it's changing your habits, not replacing them. And that's where there's no quick fixes, but gradually in small steps, improving better life habits, one step at a time.
So given we're little bit limited for time, I'm really fascinated to find out, some of the differences it's made for you here, Shaun, because I know I've worked with you for a number of years now, and and I can see that the transformation in you is very noticeable. Tell us more about the differences it's made and the new and these new habits that you talk about.
Yeah, well, and that's thanks for the feedback, Phil. I think it's to be again completely honest, and I say I don't work for Hinsa, and I'm not getting paid to promote them. It's just I want basically more people to benefit from the habits that we're sharing, and if people want to do the program, I definitely recommend it. But the changes has been more than anything that I've ever experienced, and that's because of I've looked at things per this wheel as holistic, and the content in here and the program actually is great set of resources, and as well as have helped me instill better habits. And the main ones, I think, has been around sleep and recovery and core. In terms of, I realized that when I go to the survey of what are the things I really love, it's my cycling, spending time with my family, and things. And these are two things which I weren't doing, and learning to say no to a lot of my work schedule. So I was just like totally obsessed with work and couldn't say no. So pushing back on those, and then creating more time to do more cycling and spending more quality time, not just spending time with the kids without being attentive, but having that more balance. So those are the two biggest things of now becoming more competitive in my cycling, which means I have more time to spend with people in cycling, and more quality time with the family, which that in itself was 2/3 of me like feeling more, my core is better, but then having less workload contributing to my mental energy, and my kids noticing that I was more happier and more fun to be around. That straight away was a huge benefit.
Yeah. And it's just, I'm just watching you describe that, and the fact you're just being a better dad, a better husband,
Yeah.
I mean, I can see the value that's brought into you, as apart from the selfish piece, that how delighted you are with your cycling now.
Yeah.
Much more than just that.
Yeah, and also too, and speaking of which too, one of the exercises that my coach asked me to do is to say create your ideal day. And my ideal day would be like, for example, either doing a gym workout before work or doing a cycling class after work. It gives you both endorphins, but you're improving, and a lot of the things. And then the first few weeks, everything on my list of my ideal day wasn't happening. It was like work meeting replaced this, had a work call, which I had to do. I felt tired after work and had to have a can of Coke to get me pumped up for cycling. And then it's just like, well, you can say no to meetings, or you can move meetings that if you've created these slots of prioritization, say to somebody, hey, I have a meeting that they don't need to know about what it is, but you need to prioritize this first. And they were the things where I thought, hey, yes, I can control my life, that I can say no to meetings. I don't really have to say yes to everything that gets pushed my way. And that became a habit, which then I put every week, cycling class on a Monday or Wednesday, or dinners with my kid. I'm home before 6, and just shuffling things around. And those habits, again, became new habits. And then they start kicking the healthy habits of this wheel.
I think it's interesting, Shaun. I think we talked about it in one of our earlier podcasts, that when you're part of a global organization, there will be people around the world who would be happy to meet with you 24 hours a day. Literally any time of the day or night, there's one of your colleagues is at work. Yeah. And if you're important and they want you, they'll steal your time. Yes. And this habit of blocking the time for yourself is of vital importance, and particularly whilst we're leading from home, because it is just too easy to bring the start of your working day forward another half an hour, and then another half an hour, and before you know it, you're getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, not for your benefit, but because there's somebody around the world who wants you in on a call at sort of 5:30, 5:45. Yeah. And only you have the control of whether your diary is available or not. Yeah, but exactly. It is the habit of actually blocking that time off and saying no.
Yeah, and as well as that too, which you talked about last week, but as well as through your remote learning program you taught us at Nordea, is about not always have to have a meeting for 1 hour. To say, okay, do we have a prepared agenda, and does it need to be an hour? Can we just do it in half an hour and do most of the work beforehand, or like send it afterwards? And these are the type of habits that I've done. Said, well, guys, we don't need a full hour for this. Let's book half an hour and then just communicate. We have all these tools for remote learning these days and remote coaching that we can put new habits in place. And those small things that I put in place, plus that in your calendar, there is a button which says that if you block off time, you can put private. So people who say that, hey, you're busy, Shaun, they don't need to know what you booked there. Say it could be I'm having an hour and a half lunch because I'm tired out. Those type of things that are put in place, and other people should be able to do if they need it. Means you have control over your calendar.
You do, and in fact, actually, only yesterday at the end of a coaching session, where both me and my coachee had kind of agreed a 2-minute pause before the start so that we could both get a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
When we booked our next session, we planned it from 5 past the hour.
Yeah.
Because you can do that.
Yeah, exactly. And being flexible.
Nothing stopping you
Yeah.
from starting a meeting at 5 past the hour, allowing you 5 minutes to recover from your previous session, to reflect, to absorb what's taken place, and then to reset, ready for your next session. Again, it's all in our control.
Yeah.
And so let's tame the technology here. Let's actually start using this stuff for our benefit.
Yeah.
It's been fantastic hearing these differences that you've made, Shaun. And I mean, as I say, it's obvious to anyone who knows you that these new habits are making a real difference to your professional life, and as well as to your personal life and private and your family life as well. So it's great to see.
Yeah, exactly. And I really recommend people just take a step back and look at and I'll put this in the show notes but just to look at things holistically in terms of not just about your work and your family, but think about you yourself in terms of your sleep and your health and am I eating right? But I really want to emphasize to people about sleep I think maybe next episode we talk about sleep, because there's been some interviews I've been watching on some podcasts about the quality and also just how integral it is to your health and to your performance of work. So that's a segue for next week as we dive into some of these areas. So, well, hopefully we've got some awareness for people in terms of how to instill new habits, take control over your life and your calendar, most importantly. Changing chairs, as I said, like small habits every day can help people feel a lot better. So, and that's what we're all about. So, and then speaking of small habits, Phil, Friday, small habit, are you having a beer or a small beer or two? Or in the garden, what's your habit of switching off, which we always like to encourage?
Well, we've got a new lockdown coming in place as of Monday here in the United Kingdom, where it's the joy of 6 is as it's being known. So this Saturday, I think there is a party that might involve more than 6 people in preparation for the fact that this is the last time it's going to happen. So a socially responsible, socially distanced party to celebrate somebody's golden wedding. So what a wonderful opportunity.
Exactly. I say being flexible and still celebrating. So excellent. And for me, as I've got the hat on, I'm watching the Tour de France. So being a true cyclist and at the same time switching off, relaxing. So I'll be glued to the TV as they enter into the Alps and the mountains. So I'll be, unlike having a beer, I'll probably be drinking some healthy energy drinks for my cycling rides and for myself. So healthy cycling and switching off.
Fantastic. All the very best. Have a good one. Bye, folks.
Enjoy the weekend. See you next week.
See you next week. Nice one, mate.